Hey, what's up, man? Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified YouTube channel. On this channel, we talk about crowdfunding, and really this channel began because for so much of my life, I feel like whenever I try to learn something new, or I'm trying to master a new discipline, right? It's always been so difficult because people throw out jargon and big terms and things that I don't understand. And I've always wanted to bring that to you. It's just to break things down so easily into understanding how to get funding, how to actually launch a new product into the world, why is that people even back it and buy it, and to kind of just break that apart so you can understand it more in a bite-sized fashion. And that's really what I try to do on this channel. So if you haven't yet, go check out some of my other videos. If you are a long-time subscriber, thank you so much for tuning into my videos. It always means a lot when you give me a thumbs up. In today's video, I want to get into why do people back Kickstarter campaigns? Why do they back Indiegogo campaigns? Why did they become an actual backer? And I want to get into that and understanding sort of the motivations there so you can reverse engineer this entire process, which is what we do with marketing, and in order to get people to back more of your projects online. So why do people back campaigns, right? Why do they back Kickstarter campaigns? Why do they back Indiegogo campaigns? Why do they become a patron, if you want to call them that? Why do they claim these perks and rewards, the things that we offer, right, with a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo campaign? Why do they do that? Well, obviously the answer is a little bit complicated, but I'm gonna try to make it very simple by just breaking this into a bunch of the different motivations that kind of go into this. And I think that very clearly by the end of this video, you will see what causes someone to take action. And we understand that it makes it so much easier in the future to kind of work that into our marketing, to be mindful of the communications that we're making. Because if we're not mindful of that, it's gonna be hard to hit that one box that someone needs just to kind of push them over the hill or to pull that lever in order to get them to take action. That's really the name of the game, is how do we get more people to take action? And that's what I built my career doing, whether that is my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula, which is available on Audible, as my free courses that I put out there. I try to show you how to get people to take action. So let's talk about this a little bit. First of all, I think kind of the easiest ones and sort of the low-hanging fruit. I think that for most people out there, we think of this and it's kind of difficult to understand. I remember when I first time I saw the potato salad Kickstarter campaign, which raised like $50,000, I started to see the Ouya project. You start to see way back in the day, things like the Pebble watch, the coolest cooler. Everyone was like, why is this happening? This phenomenon. Right? And that's one of the things that just from my early days in university, when I was studying at George Washington University, I was studying econ, I was always trying to understand consumer behavior, always trying to understand why people do things, right? So the first thing I think that comes to mind, and I think this is honestly pretty, very well thought out, and the reason why and stuff like that, but the first reason is going to be that people want to pre-order something. Now, while this might seem like an obvious reason, it's actually not so clear. Because if you were to think about this, if you were really going to pre-order a product, right, and you're going to do this in your normal everyday life, and you're supporting an Amazon, or you're buying something on Etsy, or you're even buying something on like eBay, you expect to receive the product, right, pretty soon. I'd say at least within a week, within 2 weeks. When it comes to a crowdfunding campaign, typically those backers are only getting the project in months' time, right? So it could be 1, 2, 3, even 6 months down the road when they receive the product. So while pre-ordering is like the easiest answer of like, oh, people want to support this campaign on Kickstarter of this really cool watch or this really cool gizmo or this wallet or whatever it is, the flavor of the month, whether it's a new radio or something, I guess radio is kind of an old term for that, right? Or something new like speaker. That's going to be something that like someone wants to own, they want to buy it. So it's almost kind of thing like they want to pre-order it. That's that reason why they're taking that action. And that's partially true. They maybe do want to own the product at the end of the day, but it doesn't encapsulate the full picture. So I think pre-order is one of the easiest answers to this question. However, it's not complete. And it's why Kickstarter, Indiegogo, if you've been looking more into their marketing, they're getting very clear saying, this is not a store, guys. This is not just a pre-order campaign. This product, in many cases, hasn't yet gone through the manufacturing process. So pre-order is one reason, is that people want to own it. But there are a couple of other reasons behind this. So there are so many different categories on Kickstarter. So I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about these and kind of intermingle them a little bit, and we can kind of talk a little bit about that. So one is pre-order. Another is going to be that people actually want to see the creation process. Okay, the creation process. And more than that, I'm totally going to misspell one of these words. Creation process, it's really hard to speak and write at the same time. They want to see the creation process, and more than that, they want to participate in it. they want to participate. Okay, I like that word participate because it really encompasses what I'm trying to get at here. So what does that mean? The creation process. Well, I always think of like those Apple commercials where you can see how this product is being made and you can kind of see how it looks really interesting and it's using this kind of aluminum or it's using this kind of Gorilla Glass and you can see this whole thing getting made. It just kind of makes it more interesting. Like if you were at a restaurant and you saw a chef making a dish or you saw him sliding that pizza into the oven and you're like, wow, that's gonna be fresh, right? When it comes out, it just gets you a little bit more excited. So one is that they like to see the creation process, okay? But that's not really the motivation, not just like backing it because they want to see the creation process, because they could obviously just watch a documentary online or they could watch and learn about that in their own time. But they really want to become an active participant in that process. So what are some of the ways you can do that? I don't want to get too much in that in this video. I want to try to keep it a little bit more succinct and more on point. But I would just say, for example, it's like showing iterations of the product, showing designs of the product, showing as it's coming together, as you're getting packaging together, as fulfillment's happening. You want to involve people and allow them to participate in the creative process. And that might even just be as simple as getting them to choose certain colors or getting them, if you get to a certain stretch goal, if you're doing stretch goals with your Kickstarter or your Indiegogo campaign, that you unlock certain cool new rewards or certain cool new variations or options, right? It gets super exciting when people can participate in the creative process because then it feels like you're creating this thing together. In a lot of ways you are, because without their validation, without their support, you might not even move forward with this project, right? So pre-orders one, they want to participate in the creative process. That's another. I would say, another word we could use here, another creative process would be patronage. So this tends to be more so along the artistic category. We use that word patronage. Someone becomes a patron of your Kickstarter campaign. And this has even gone so far as back in the early days, Kickstarter actually started another platform which is called Drip, which they then closed down. And Patreon actually kind of created a competitor platform and was super successful, honestly. So Patreon kind of capitalized a little bit more on that word patron, but it actually originally started with Kickstarter, which is people were seeing themselves as being a patron when they are supporting or backing a campaign. And that's usually more on the line, again, it's like artistic kind of campaigns, whether that's a film project or something that's more film oriented or acting oriented, theater, things like design, what I'm talking about, like, graphical design or really interesting picture book or something that is moving that artist's career forward in some way. Patronage is another reason. And again, what a patron is doing is that they're allowing themselves to say, I want this work to exist. Back in the early days of patronage, right, you would have a lot of, honestly, religious reasons behind that patronage, whether it's like the Catholic Church or other kinds of religious denominations, and they're sponsoring artists to make this beautiful artwork. And in that, they're also obviously getting some of their own values and beliefs in that particular artwork. So patronage is a big one. It's because people, again, want to be involved in the creative process, but it's kind of just with a different flavor and a different category when it comes to patronage. Another big reason why people back Kickstarter campaigns is that they like and want to support the actual creator. Now, this is a super controversial point, okay? But hear me out here. They want to like and support the actual creator. And I'll also add this word creators because actually it's usually a certain team that's behind it. So there are a lot of ways that this could happen. One is just with friends and family, right? So friends and family, you have a pre-existing relationship, or in some way, you've obviously had a lot of different interactions over the years. You guys have, your lives are intermingled and they want to see you do well, and emotions also going to benefit them if you do well, and they're going to feel great and these kinds of things. The whole reason why charity and nonprofit fundraising is a thing, right? So likes and support can kind of start with friends and family, but it also extends to strangers. And here's why. When you see a group of strangers, let's just say a team, that's thinking about a problem that you've also witnessed in your life in a completely innovative way. And let's just say that is, for example, standing laptop discs. And you've also just been the culprit of having really bad spine posture and really bad, support when it comes to that. And they thought and reinvented the problem in a whole new way with really great values and honesty and transparency and high quality materials. You kind of begin to like the actual team behind it, particularly as you learn more about them. I've seen this happen time and time again, where there's almost like a halo effect, okay? So I'm just gonna illustrate that there. Like a halo effect kind of happens And it's really weird. I mean, I think this is kind of like a fame effect, honestly. On some of my coaching calls, we also get this, and people who have been following my work for a long time. It's just kind of natural. The more you hang out with someone, the more that you get to know them, the more you just kind of like them, right? Especially if they're a good person. So a lot of the times with Kickstarter campaigns, when people get to sample a little bit of your story, why it is that you created this, what are some of your values when it comes to design, what are things you want to accomplish in the world, what is your vision, right? What is your approach to solving this problem? They're like, oh, this is so cool. I think this way. This guy is awesome. I love what he's doing. You ever watch those YouTube videos where like a guy builds a fort or something in the middle of the wilderness and you're just like, this is super cool, man, right? And you just kind of like that person a little bit because of what they're doing or because of dealing with similar problems or struggles or thinking in the same way or thinking very originally. You respect that person. Another big reason why people back projects is that they like the actual creator, they vibe with the creator, and they want to actually help them out with their vision. And kind of linking here, they want to also become a part of that creator's community and become a part of the creative process. So these two are actually, I think, really well tied together. So this is why it's so important to have a little bit of those elements. And again, those elements are really going to vary depending on the category that you're launching in. With some categories, you do want to just focus a lot on the product. With other categories, it actually makes a lot more sense to also talk about who the artists are, who the people are that are involved in the project, the engineers, their skills, how they stumble on the product idea, the problems that they were encountering before that also can be really important in other different categories. The next reason why people support Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns kind of goes more along with the traditional buying process, but it is a little bit different. So when I say pre-order up here, I do mean the traditional buying process. Like you just want to own that thing, you just want that product, right? There's different kind of type of people out there that are called early adopters, okay? You might be familiar with this term, okay? Early adopters, and this is really part of the whole technological curve, right? So early adopters, for example, like with a new company like Tesla, when that first came out, the people that were the first ones to buy the product, or when iPhone came out, the first ones to own that. Early adopters are a different kind of lot because they're people who not only want to own and pre-order the product, but their identity is also associated with owning things very quickly and to be the first ones to have that cool technological product or something that goes like, wow, that's so cool. They can show it off to their friends and it just makes you feel special to a certain degree. So early adopters, it's really an identity. And they might not identify themselves like, hey guys, I'm an early adopter. They might not be like that if they're at a party or something like that. But you can tell by their buying behavior that they really do pride themselves in being some of the first people to own something. Now this can also be like, go even further, you talk about like hipsters. Actually, Kickstarter's HQ is based in Brooklyn. Lived in Brooklyn for many years. Brooklyn is amazing and there's a lot of hipsters there that love to be the first one on a creative trend, right? Same thing goes with early adopters. They love to be the first one to own something really cool. Now, typically, early adopters are going to be much more in line with a physical product of some kind and usually involving some kind of a technological or really a leap forward when it comes to user interface or design. So there's something interesting, innovative, special, makes someone go, wow, I've never seen something like that before. They're like, I gotta own this thing. It is so cool, right? And they start to geek out and nerd out about it. So if you have a product like that and you've been thinking about launching a campaign, this is a great community for you to then tap into, and one of the ones that you're going to want to think a little bit more about catering to if you're going to be doing a project around that. The next reason why people support Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns kind of goes a little bit along with this item, but there is a difference, so I'll kind of illustrate what that is. And that's vision / world view. Okay, vision / worldview. And what do I mean by that? I mean, the person is not necessarily supporting it because of the individual who's doing the project. And that's kind of the tenet I was talking about here, is like they like the actual person. But more so, they actually identify and they like the vision which is being promoted by the particular project. And I'll give you an example of this in just a second. But they essentially are saying that by supporting this, number one, I love the direction that this is going, and this is moving the world forward in a particular direction. Great example of this would be Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls, which is one of the people I've had on my podcast. Mega successful campaign, books in Barnes & Noble, like successful in so many different measures. And they're creating a book of children's stories where young girls could look up and they could see role models that are also female that they could identify with, right? A book of cultures, another great episode I had on my podcast, kind of illustrating that same thing. So people are supporting it. Obviously they like the creator, they think all these other things are cool, they want to own it, but really it's because they want to move that narrative forward. They want to support that new cultural narrative in that, yes, I want more books like this to exist in the future. Yes, I like the idea of children, maybe in minority groups or children that are of different genders, being able to look up to a role model that is like them, right? So they're buying into that vision, that worldview. And I tend to see this a lot in film campaigns. So a lot of the times when people will back a film campaign, I actually recently backed one of my friends' Indiegogo campaigns, and this was for a film called Memory, which is like a short film. And the reason was that it was really documenting and talking about the process when it comes to Alzheimer's. And that was something that unfortunately my grandmother experienced, and I also experienced some of the effects of that and having someone in the household and family that suffers from that horrible disease of dementia and Alzheimer's, right? So this film was all about that and kind of awareness a little bit around that. And I liked it because I was supporting the vision of bringing more attention to that kind of demographic, which isn't talked about very much. So vision and worldview is a very powerful way to get people who've never met you before in person to give $1,000 to your campaign. I had actually another example. One of my friends in Brooklyn put on a play, and a random stranger donated $1,000 to their theater campaign. And it was because they really related with what that person was doing. Actually, I had another example, just all come to my mind, relational memory, how it works. I'm a huge psychology junkie, by the way. And one of my friends, they were doing another film campaign, and a random person donated a bunch of money to theirs, and it was because their campaign was all about the Rwandan genocide. And sort of it made that individual think a little bit about their family history and how their family was actually involved in the genocide that happened when it comes to like the Jewish faith and Jewish community, et cetera, there. And they kind of related it in their mind, and they're like, I want to promote and talk about this. This was a really interesting film. I want to support it. So you never know what kind of box it's going to tick, right? But if you are part of some kind of a larger cultural narrative, your project is, whether it's something more creative or it is something even a physical product that's kind of pushing some kind of a cultural vision, worldview, or narrative, this is another reason why random people are going to back your project, is that they connect with that and they want to move that forward. Another one that I want to talk about has to do with the way that sometimes marketers are almost too good at their jobs. Okay, I know being too good at your job is like almost, that sounds awesome, right? And I'm sure that you're really good at whatever it is that you do for a living, or whatever it is that you've been working at for your entire life. And maybe this is a new event in your life, a new chapter in your life, where you're trying to launch a new project, right? You're trying to get really good at this. So think a little bit about that. If you are so good at your job, are there sometimes negative consequences of that? Answer is yeah, right? So a lot of people will actually make what are called impulse purchases, okay? Impulse buys, we'll say, or impulse purchases, or impulse supporting of a campaign. This is kind of the next thing when it comes to why people will back campaigns, or what at least gets them over that hump. So it's kind of a double-edged sword though, my friend. It is a double-edged sword, and here's why, right? So on the one hand, you're doing well with marketing if you're just getting people to buy it and they didn't even know they wanted the thing in the first place. And also once they do buy it, it's almost like such an impulse purchase that they're not even thinking about it. And maybe later on, they actually question that decision. So while if you have a really good deal, let's say, for example, something that's a very good price, or you're just offering a killer deal with your rewards, super exciting, like the video just gets people so excited about this project that you're doing that gets them to buy it and back it really quickly. And that's exactly what I teach. I teach this in my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula, which I'll include a link down below. I talk about this in my free course. I actually have a masterclass that I put together just for you that goes through this kind of step-by-step how to have this effect happen, where people are buying it. Like, I don't even know why I want this thing, I just want it, right? So I'll include that masterclass down below, crowdcrux.com/masterclass. You can check that out. But this is a problem as well. And here's why. When people make an impulse buy, sometimes they kind of later on will come to their senses, or will think about it more clearly, and they're like, you know what? I don't know if the wife would like it, right? That I made that huge purchase, or I made that purchase. Maybe I probably shouldn't buy it, right? And they might cancel their pledge, or they might decrease their reward tier. And this can be really like, cause so much uncertainty. Because if you've been working hard and all of a sudden someone cancels their pledge because maybe you didn't update, or maybe you were communicating just too much, and it reminded them that they actually backed the project, you're like, oh no, I shouldn't have done that, right? So people will make impulse buys, and one of the reasons why they will actually support projects is that they're just getting such a good deal, right? And it's exciting for them, and they're like, I just want to participate, I want this, right? And you get them to take action. but you also have to do some different things that I talk about in that masterclass in order to make sure that you have someone who's like a sticky buyer, which is that they stay around. They don't have what's called buyer's remorse, which is they made a decision and then they regret that decision later, right? So this is another reason why people will back Kickstarter projects.
Want to take all the stress out of fulfilling your Kickstarter rewards? Fulfillrite is the turnkey solution that puts product delivery on autopilot. The Top Campaigns uses trusted high-tech provider to store, package, and ship their products. Focus on growing your business. Leave shipping to the experts. Don't wait. Get a custom quote from Fulfillrite today. Link in the description.
The last one that I'm going to mention, and then I'm also going to share a way, if you want to, that we can work one-on-one in an intensive session. And this is only for a small number of people in the audience. If you are interested, you got to be serious. Please have done your homework. Don't just show up not knowing anything, when it comes to Kickstarter and crowdfunding. Please watch a couple of my videos before you take action on that. So the last one I want to talk about is actually more of a recent and a newer phenomena, okay? And there's actually one great podcast episode I did, which I'll talk about in just a second. But why do people back projects? Another reason, and this can kind of go, I'd say, as in general when it comes to a lot of different types of marketing. So we'll kind of throw a few different ones in here. Is that they back it because they're part of an existing community, okay? They're part of an existing community, and then what I call hopping on the bandwagon. So this is like a bandwagon effect, we'll call it, okay? They're part of an existing community, and they're hopping on the bandwagon. And I'll give you a great example of that, so you know that I'm just not talking here, right? I've actually studied this a lot, all these different reasons why people back projects. I've done a lot of surveys on my own forum, kickstarterforum.org, with my own community, etc. And really talked obviously with tons and tons of people, like thousands of people by now, when it comes to podcasts, when it comes to coaching calls, when it comes to projects I'm helping, when it comes to backers in general, right? So much data when it comes to supporting these different items. So community and bandwagon effect. What is a great example of this? A great example of this is how recently Nomadic, which is a camera accessory brand, I'd say actually more like backpacks and like gear related to that, but also when it comes to travel and like everyday travel, everyday gear, that kind of stuff. They got started in the industry. I actually did an interview of them when I was on a panel in New York City. You can go look at my channel if you want to learn more about that. And they actually came on my show recently, and they were talking about how they recently partnered with Peter McKinnon, who is a YouTuber, if you're not familiar. Really great YouTuber. I've learned a ton of film stuff from him as well. He's a great guy. And I think has a lot of really interesting ideas and ways in which he does film, particularly combining it with music and combining it with different sounds, and also how audio is even more important, right, than video in some ways. Really interesting. But he did a joint Kickstarter campaign with those guys. And what's so cool about that is that when I was on the show, I was asking like, so how did this do, guys? Like, give me the scoop. How did this do? And they were like, dude, it was so powerful, right? It was just like incredible, the number of people that were backing this project. And it was almost like they discovered a whole new way of marketing, which is, again, to tap into an existing community. And what ends up happening is that when some of those community get involved, it creates this bandwagon effect where it's like once someone else's fans begin to take action, all the other fans are like, oh, I'm a fan too. Like, I want to show that I'm a fan, right? And they start to get involved with whatever that is. So that could be as simple as following an influencer on another social media platform. Could be backing a Kickstarter campaign that influencer is a part of. The fans want to show their support and they want to be a part of it, right? They want to be a part of that community. So this is another reason is that when you are launching a project, if you have an influencer, you have something you're working with, a lot of the times it can cause almost this like bandwagon effect, and a lot of their fans can actually transition over. And the reason why they're backing it is not necessarily because of the product, although that's cool probably, not necessarily even because of they like the vision or the worldview or these things, but it's really just because they want to be a part of what that influencer is a part of. And we're seeing that actually happen more and more. I think that we're actually have more collaborations between influencers when it comes to crowdfunding in general, going beyond Kickstarter. I think it's also going to happen a lot with equity crowdfunding. We've already seen it happen with real estate crowdfunding. There's a lot of different places where I could see this working really, really well, particularly as we get more and more influencers involved in like growing their communities online in general. So these are just a couple of quick reasons. There are actually more reasons than this that I've written down in my own private notes, right, when it comes to why people back campaigns, but these are sort of the high level ones. So marketing is about understanding these reasons and making sure that you also understand which one is going to be the biggest mover, the most compelling reason behind your specific campaign, behind your specific product, behind what you're trying to do, what you're trying to raise money for, what you're trying to bring into the world, man. This is what it is all about. So if you need a little bit of help identifying that, and you also want to talk more about your strategy and what you're trying to accomplish and whether or not this is realistic, right? Can you really go out there and can you smash your goal as I talk about with Kickstarter campaign? Is this even a good category for you? I'll be honest with you, I'll come to you and I'll say, dude, this is not right. You should not be doing a Kickstarter campaign. I actually had a recent call about that where I was like, you really should not be doing a campaign for this one. You need to be doing another platform actually other than Kickstarter for this particular product category. So there's a lot that goes into launching a campaign. And one of the most successful campaigns, or some of the most successful campaigns are just doing the right things, right? You just gotta do the right things. You gotta make sure you have the right team around you. So if you wanna book a one-on-one intensive coaching call with me, I'm gonna include, again, a link down below for that. That link is crowdcrux.com/coaching. If you're not ready yet, or you want even just more information, I definitely recommend checking out that masterclass that I mentioned before, which I will link down below. My goal here is to make this easy for you, right? Life is so complicated. I hate it when I have to figure things out. I'm like, why did someone just not make this easy, right? And it's always so hard to learn jargon. It's always so difficult to break into a new industry. So my goal since 2012, since I launched my podcast in 2015, doing the YouTube channel was probably a little bit after that. My goal always has been trying to help and put out useful information. So if you feel like I succeeded a little bit in this video, please give me a thumbs up. Just to show that you care, that you like this video, that you want to put out more content like this, would mean so much to me if you gave me a thumbs up on this video. You can leave a comment down below if you have a question. I've been super busy recently, so I might not get to it for a couple of weeks, honestly, right now, just because I've got so much new stuff that I'm coming out with and building just even more training material when it comes to my insider community, etc. So really excited for that. But thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Salvador Briggman, and I'll see you next time.